for a fan and for fans like us, we just constantly want to see action, right? So
Yeah,
I think for us to sit here and be like it was a boring race is a little bit unfair, because you're right, it was more of a race about strategy and about tire management and just bringing it home, really. So from that perspective, from a technical perspective, it was quite exciting.
same.
It
I
was,
just find that these cars, yes, they can race very close behind each other, extremely close for numerous laps, but there's something to do with the air effects. They don't seem to be able to like get out of the slipstream and then like overtake.
he did well today. We know I don't like him.
I feel like you
uh
struggled to say he did well today.
I did struggle to say that. um
Hello, welcome back to On the Chicane. You're here with me, Paris, and my co host, Marium. And today we are talking about the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. It was due to be a really fun weekend. Everything that happened there, usually it's supposed to be a great race. To me, it just fell a little bit flat. I think the weekend was a bit hyped up. You had the wet, you had the rain during quali, you had a lot of people doing amazing in free practice, but I think on the actual race fell a bit flat. What do you think, Mario?
yeah, I agree. I think practice, like, it was looking promising for a lot of people that it was quite unexpected from. But then I remember seeing the quali results. I didn't watch quali, but I remember seeing the results thinking, what kind of order is this and what has happened?
Yeah,
Like, it made no sense. Um, so from that, I was like, oh, this is going to be a really exciting race. Um, but I don't think it was. I think it was a pretty standard race. There was a DRS train for most of it. Um, I think we got some like good results for the drivers that we personally support, for most of them. Um, but other than that, it was just a pretty boring return to Canada.
yeah, I think that's exactly it. It was a bit underwhelming during the race. Um, like you, I'm super happy about the result of the race. Could have been even better, but it was great for what it was. And I just think that the general 70 laps today felt like it went on for about 150 laps and needed to be a bit more punchy, a bit more fun, especially since we had that amazing qualifying yesterday. So yesterday you had a wet qualifying. It had rained in Montreal. It was extremely wet. So they started Q1 on the extreme wet tires, all 20 drivers. And, you know, you had, as you said, some people performing really well in practice. So, you know, the Aston Martins looked really strong, and we were hoping that they would deliver, but then they ended up getting knocked out in Q1. Vettel at the very last moment still didn't manage to pull a lap out of the bag. I think that was more due to setup than ability, because if you look more towards the front of the grid with drivers that had visited Canada a lot before, so Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Alonso, especially Kevin Magnussen, you saw that maybe experience in the wet and experience around the track was really showing up for them and pushing them to the front. But I think, yeah, like you ended up with this crazy, amazing mixed grid. You had Leclerc, he had to take a new engine, so he had an engine penalty, meaning that he started from the back of the grid. So he kind of dipped out in Q2. He was just like, see you guys there. I don't need to do any more of this. I'm starting from the back of the grid anyway. Why waste tires? Why waste anything for the weekend? And yeah, you ended up with this really amazing mixed grid. And I just felt like the race just stunted that a little bit, and it didn't deliver. I'm trying to think what else happened in quali. Towards the end of it, the track started drying up. So Q1 was on the full wets. Q2, they kind of started to move to the Inters. You had Perez, who went on to the Inters perhaps a little bit too early, and ended up into one of the barriers. So he had a bit of a tough weekend. And then you had, like, in Q1, I don't know why, but Mercedes decided to try George Russell on some of the softs, on the slicks. And yeah, he just ended up completely going off because, of course, he would. The track hadn't been cleared of water and touched a bit of water and couldn't get around. So I don't know. To me, that wasn't the best decision. But as I said, you ended up with a really cool starting grid. So you had Verstappen in pole position, Alonso second, Sainz third, and then Lewis Hamilton fourth, and Magnussen fifth. So looked to be a really good race. And then you get to today. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
As we've said, the race was pretty flat. From the start, I think it was a pretty clean getaway. There was just a little bit of damage to Magnussen's car, who went wheel to wheel with Hamilton in the first lap, which was a little bit exciting. But generally, it was a clean start amongst everyone. And even throughout the race, though, like, the battles weren't gripping, I think. There were a lot of battles happening, a lot of battling to get into the points and to gain positions, obviously, but nothing that was like that kept us like on the edge of our seats until the last, I think, 10 laps between Sainz and Verstappen. I think it goes to show that Montreal just needs to be a wet race. So we needed the rain for today's race, but it wasn't there. It was just a dry race. So yeah, not that exciting.
Because you even had, like, the safety cars, right? Like, you had the virtual safety car, the full safety car. And whilst that kind of mixed up the strategies a little bit, it still didn't really help the racing. I felt like people changed position.
For a fan, and for fans like us, we just constantly want to see action, right? So
yeah.
I think for us to sit here and be like, it was a boring race is a little bit unfair, because you're right, it was more of a race about strategy and about tire management and just bringing it home, really. So from that perspective, from a technical perspective, it was quite exciting, and it was, how will they manage this situation? For example, the safety cars and the virtual safety cars, making sure that the drivers pit on time and blah, 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 putting them against each other. But in terms of like action packed, there wasn't much. So, it depends what you're looking for from these races. But yeah, like I said, it was a race about strategy and tire management. And to be fair, a lot of teams did well, depending on who you're rooting for. Pit stops today were a disaster. I feel like across the board, they were so slow. Ferrari had a troublesome pit stop with the clerk, which was heartbreaking. They were just slow for some reason.
I think all of them, like, maybe one pit stop that they showed on the live race was okay. It was like a 2.7 even, which to me is still a bit slow, 2.5. But I think generally people were like 3 seconds, 5 seconds even. There was a lot of mistakes, which is unusual for an entire set of pit teams to have that many mistakes. Luckily, I think they all had mistakes, which meant that they all didn't benefit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like some had mistakes and some didn't. So they all kind of suffered together, but it was really weird. It felt odd.
Yeah, it did feel odd. So yeah, I mean, I guess if we break down the race, we had 2 DNFs. The first one was Perez, who you just have to question what is going on with his season this year. The guy has signed a contract extension with Red Bull, but 4 out of 8 races have finished in a DNF for him with hydraulic or like engine issues or something, whatever. So it does make you question like what is going on with Red Bull. Like, Verstappen's car seems completely fine. So what is different, so dramatically different with Perez's car that, I mean, obviously Max had issues at the start of the year, but they seem to have fixed those. Why have they not fixed whatever was going on with Perez's car? I think that's just a bit confusing. So yeah, he ended up to the barriers.
Perez, I think he just kind of pulled over his hydraulic
Yeah.
issue. I think he went towards the barriers, but I don't think he ends up in the barriers. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I generally I disagree a little bit. I think he's had a better season at the beginning compared to Max. Like he's had a bit more consistent, like what's the word, reliability. But because like
Really?
yeah, I feel like Max had more DNF. Like Max had two DNFs straight away, like at the very beginning. And
Yeah, but
whereas
that's what
like,
I'm saying. Like they fixed his car. Why have they not done that with Perez?
well, yeah, this is I don't. But what I'm saying is, I don't know if this because where Perez has dipped, it's kind of like dip and then come back up, and I feel like I don't know if this is a new issue or if this is something that Max now also has to be worried about because it could be the amount of time that they've had these PUs and stuff. So I don't know. I kind of agree with you in the sense that like it's weird that he's just had such a bad weekend after having such a good couple of weekends. But I think, yeah, no conspiracy theories over here, trying to stay clear of them. I don't know. He just had a really, really tough weekend yesterday and today, and I think he's going to have to really, if he wants to stay in the championship fight, he's going to have to get onto them about, like you said, making sure that there is reliability for his car. But he doesn't need any more of these kind of issues happening.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't really know what's going on, but they've got 2 weeks to fix it until the next race. So let's see. I guess another talking point is our Mercedes boys. Hamilton, despite complaining about his car this weekend and saying it's a really bad car, he actually qualified fourth.
Yeah.
I think Russell qualified something like seventh, something. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But both of the Mercedes drivers actually had a pretty decent race today, and like I feel like all throughout, especially as they were climbing, I was like waiting for something to happen. I was like, there's gonna be an engine failure. There's gonna be someone just like going into the barriers. Something's gonna happen, and their race is just gonna end.
Mm.
But it didn't. Like that fatal moment that I was waiting for just didn't come.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had Hamilton on the podium today. He finished third, and behind him, his teammate Russell in fourth.
I was I was super happy. I was just like, yeah, I, I was screaming because he had a difficult start to the year, and especially with the safety cars, he seems to always come out on the wrong end of it. And there was, like you said, that moment where I was like, oh crap, he's still out, and there's not a safety car for him right now. I think there was a moment where it's like, if a safety car, someone goes into the barrier right now and he gets a safety car, he's like 10 seconds ahead of the person behind him, which I think at the time was Russell. I was like, he could easily just get a quick safety, a quick stop, and be in a position for a podium. So I was genuinely scared for him. Like, shit, what if he just comes out on the wrong end of one of these safety cars or something like that and ends up off of the podium? So yeah, I was super happy for him that everything kind of worked out the way it has been working out for George in the sense of like luck and everything when it comes to safety cars. And then obviously he could just maximize the performance of the car, because as you said, like he was saying, it was a bit difficult at the beginning of the weekend. I know that he was trialing a completely different setup to the one that he used in the race. So I think when he was saying this is a terrible car and this is like the worst car, it's undrivable, man. As he said, like I think that was to do with that particular setup, saying like that setup is undrivable, and then they put him back in this one for for the race, which is similar to George's, and yeah, it seems to work out really well for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's promising for sure. I think we can definitely kind of count them out of the championship, considering how strong Red Bull are. But it's nice to see that they have the potential to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And going into Silverstone, which is the next race, like it's their home race, so it gives, I think, the fans a bit of hope, really, that not it's not all doom and gloom, but you never know how it's going to pan out at Silverstone. So let's see. But yeah, it was nice to see there was a moment in the race where Hamilton actually overtook Verstappen, and it was a bit reminiscent of last year, and it was just so nice to see. I mean, it was so short-lived because obviously the pace difference is like vast, but it was just a nice moment where we just saw Lewis taking Max. But yeah,
It did make me smile. I think there was even more moments as well. Like I think there was one moment where he overtook Alonso as well a little bit earlier, and I was just like, he was on completely different tires. I think it was just after his first pit stop, so he was on fresh tires, and Alonso is now on like the mediums, or it might have been the second one where he was again on the fresh harder tires, and then Alonso was on the hards. I can't remember exactly when, but it does make you feel a little bit good, even though you know those things. Generally, I think some people had really good races for like themselves, such as Hamilton, Russell, Sainz almost coming first, which we'll discuss. But then some people also had really bad races. Like Norris had a ridiculous pit stop, which completely put him near the back of the grid. And he just did not have the power. Like he completely just stayed in the same position after that, didn't really move. I was expecting him to maybe come back and make up some of those places. And I feel like, he more or less just he finished 15th and 3 cars DNF. You had Perez, Mick Schumacher, and Tsunoda. Perez and Mick DNFing because of engine failures, and then Tsunoda going into the wall. But like literally, I don't know, just I was really surprised that Norris did so badly, and Ricciardo also finished outside of the points.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with McLaren this year, but also I don't really care. I mean, yeah, I'm not really that bothered about McLaren as a team. They're quite mediocre this year. I'm kind of over it. I'm over the whole McLaren hype. So yeah.
Not a fan of the papaya.
No. I do like their chrome, what they called? The chrome covers on their tires.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's just the coolest thing about the team at the moment. It's probably quite rude to say, isn't it? Sorry, McLaren, love me, sponsor us. What else happened? We had Ferrari. Let's talk about Ferrari.
Yeah.
So Sainz obviously finished P2 today. Got to give it to him. He drove so well and so hard in those final 10 laps, considering how bad his races have been the past few races that we've had. It was amazing. Like I was waiting for something to happen in his race to just kind of end, but no, he chased Verstappen down right till like the checkered flag. For those last 10 laps.
He was so close, and I really thought that he was going to do it. And I was questioning whether or not it's the car or if it was him, because it was what I was saying. I just find that these cars, yes, they can race very close behind each other, extremely close for numerous laps, but there's something to do with the air effects. They don't seem to be able to like get out of the slipstream and then like overtake as easy as the old cars used to. And it's something that I'm noticing more and more. And I don't know if I'm just noticing it because I'm focusing on it, but I find that unless the car behind is on newer tires, unless they have so much more power than the other car, like I'm thinking of Ferrari in the first couple of races when they literally just had an amazing amount of power plus DRS, and then they were doing the whole, like, remember with DRS chicken, it wasn't necessarily that Max was faster, it was more that that Leclerc was like slowing down so much that he was letting Verstappen go past him because he knew he would be able to overtake Verstappen in the next DRS. So I'm really wondering, yes, it's great for like close following, but is it great for close racing? And then on the other hand, I'm like, okay, maybe Sainz just didn't have it. Like maybe Sainz just needed that little Verstappen fire, that Hamilton fire, that Leclerc fire. And if had it been Leclerc and Verstappen fighting, maybe we would have seen a different outcome, or maybe we would have seen more battles, because he was really close at different points. And I just wonder, which one is it? Is it a combination of the two, or is it definitely like the cars are not good enough to like really battle each other, or Sainz is not good enough to battle Verstappen?
It's an interesting point you make, because you're right. There were times where Sainz was so close and the gap was so small. And there were plenty of opportunities for him to be able to over, like, we followed them for 10 laps. And in all of those laps, you saw Sainz with DRS and like with the potential to overtake, and he just could not keep up with Max. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a combination of the two. Because I do think Sainz is a competitive driver. I do think Leclerc is more likely to get his elbows out a bit more, but I don't think that Sainz is a complete, like, wet boy and he wouldn't like want to fight. So yeah, I'm gonna say probably the car. But that being said, I'm just happy to see him on the podium. I'm happy that Sainz finally had a good race.
He definitely needed it.
Yeah, honestly. And even Leclerc, like, to get up to fifth after starting from the back, essentially. And, he had a lot of he had a lot of moments in the race where he was out of the points because of pit stops and things like that. So for him to keep fighting and, to come back and get fifth, that's solid points for the team. So yeah, I'm really happy with the Ferrari performance today.
I agree. I think you're totally right. Damage control was done well on the first part. Again, I did expect to see a lot more overtakes just on merit of the car, just because you had this powerful Ferrari coming through the pack. And I think towards the back of the race, there was definitely that. Like, he was overtaking the Astons, he was overtaking the Williams, like now to Taris in like 2 seconds. But then when you got closer to like Ocon, for example, I know he was stuck behind Ocon for ages. And I just, again, really want to see some of that racing craft coming through. So that's when I say like I found it a bit of a boring race. It's in those moments where I feel like that would have been an amazing battle to have Ocon and Leclerc like really going at it. But in the end, it was kind of decided a bit by the safety cars and the pit stops and tires rather than straightforward overtaking. So yeah, but kudos to Leclerc because he really went for it and managed to get himself back up there. And Sainz tried very hard.
He did try. Yeah. Who else was there? I guess talking about Alonso, let's quickly touch upon his race. Obviously, qualified second, which was, I think, his first front row start since like 2012 or something. I think that was a stat that I saw, which is mad. He did well today. We know I don't like him.
I feel like you struggled to say he did well today.
I did struggle to say that. I mean, I haven't made it a secret that I'm not his biggest fan, only because of the way that he just acts like a child. And yeah, anyway, I'm not going to go into my whole Alonso spiel again. But yeah, I mean, starting on the front row is impressive. And sadly for him, he couldn't quite overtake his teammate to get sixth, but he did finish the race behind him in seventh. So Ocon and Alonso both finished sixth and seventh. So that was good points again for Alpine. But yeah, Alonso's the team Alpine didn't quite let him take the position from Ocon as he requested.
No team orders at Alpine.
But that being said,
Or shall we say team orders at Alpine? I don't know which way it works. Technically, that would be team orders. But team orders against the driver that was faster, which is unusual.
Let them race.
Okay.
Ocon did do really well today, though. I feel like Ocon's a bit of the underdog. Like he's not quite up there scoring like the highest points and getting podiums, but he's not doing badly either. I feel like he tends to have a pretty standard, solid. I feel like he's a new Gasly.
Yeah, Gasly's
Gasly
not even Gasly this year.
Yeah, Gasly's kind of fallen off a bit, but I feel like Ocon's a new Gasly, and he's kind of having like steady races for the most part. I know there's been a few where he's not, but yeah, he brought home sixth today, so that's impressive, I guess. We also had the Astons. So obviously, as Paris said, incredible performance in practice. They were both on fire. Stroll in his home country, his home race, looking to like bring home a solid finish. Vettel P3 in FP3.
Yeah.
And then they both just bin it in quali. They were like 17th and 18th, which was like what? But then today they had a pretty good comeback. Both of them were in the points at one point. I think Seb was up to 8th at one point, and Lance, I think the highest he got up to was 7th, maybe. Up until he had to pit. He went for a really long stint without pitting. But then he brought home the last point at the end of the race. So I think the Astons, where they had a really bad start to the year, and they've now got this new magical number 2 car that they're driving, it's showing promising signs of competitiveness, I think.
Yeah. I think it's definitely improving slowly over the year. And I think, we've said from the beginning that Aston's goal is long term, it's not a short term goal. So we're just going to see them slowly making these gains. And I think it will be interesting to see who drives for them next year, and how they, just because I'm saying like we don't know who will be driving for Aston next year. So I'm just saying, I think it will be interesting to see how the car progresses and then who takes up that mantle next year, if it's the same drivers or if it's new drivers, and how the car keeps progressing. Marium actually wants to kill me.
I ain't saying shit. I'm just gonna move on from this. But yeah, let's just wait and see, shall we?
Okay, shall we jump to our winners and losers of the day? I think we pretty much wrapped up the race. Verstappen won. He did well. He drove super well, as he always does. There was no crying, no anger, no crazy moves. He literally just drove a really solid race. Well done, Verstappen. That felt weird, but I said it. Okay.
Yeah, let's move on.
So yeah, winners and losers of the day. Merc, who was your loser of the day?
Can I say 2 people?
Go for it.
I'm going to go for both of the McLarens.
Cool.
Ricardo and Norris, just because I'm like, what is going on with you guys?
Yeah.
Like, neither of them made it into the points today. There was that really awful pit stop. I don't quite understand what's going on with the team. So, yeah, I'm going to say McLaren.
Cool. I'm gonna say Magnussen because he started in fifth and ended up like literally last except the DNFs. So and like that's like behind the Latifi last.
Shocking.
Yeah. So I feel like he just had a really bad race, especially after like he tapped Lewis. Like contact on the first lap for him seems to be a thing and he needs to watch out and not have contact. So yeah, my loser of the day is going to be Magnussen because I feel like he could have really done some really good points finishing there for Haas, and they need it. But yeah, my winner of the day is going to be. Crap, I had a winner of the day. Who was I thinking I was going to be? Oh, my winner of the day is going to be Joe.
Oh, okay, fine.
He got his second point finish and he made it into Q3 this weekend. So he now has 3 points in the championship. He's got his first set of points since Bahrain. So he got like 1 point in his first race of the season. And then now he's got 2 more points because he came ninth. So I'm actually really proud of him. Like he did really well. And there's points where he was like battling up there and he's been pretty close to Bottas all weekend. So I think, for someone who's quite an unknown entity, like that's quite a good points finish for him.
All right, that's fair. I'm giving mine to, I think this is so obvious, but Carlos Sainz, just because I'm a Ferrari fangirl and I'm a Carlos Sainz fangirl, and I'm really happy that he finally had a good race after having like just such bad luck. And I'm happy that he just finally got a podium finish. And despite not being able to chase down Max, he did well. So yeah, he's my winner of the day. And I hope that this continues in Silverstone. And I really hope that we get a Ferrari win in Silverstone. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I can't agree with that last statement, but
Yeah.
in 2 weeks it will be Silverstone. We will be back. We haven't figured out how, but we will be back.
Yeah, we haven't quite figured out how. This could be a normal video. It could be a video in a different format. We'll wait and see.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? We will be reposting our Silverstone vlog from last year. Check that out because we did go to Silverstone last year. We had an amazing weekend last year. We went to the Aston Martin event, met Nico Hulkenberg. I completely embarrassed myself with him. Do you remember I was telling him about he complimented my sunglasses and I decided that I should tell him where they were from and how much they cost because that's obviously hell for Formula One. Like, yeah, they're from PLT. They're really cheap, Anyway, no, we had a great time at Silverstone last year. That was super fun. Chilled with the W Series crew. Naomi Schiff was super lovely. Chatted to her a little bit. What else did we do? I'm trying to think.
We did so much. We had a great weekend. And obviously, guys, I don't know if you can tell from our accents or not, but Silverstone is obviously our home race. So, yeah, we are currently figuring out our plans for Silverstone this year. I am actually working that weekend because obviously I think all of you know I work in Formula One and motorsports. But I'm not on ground as of yet, but we'll see. Anyway, catch up on our vlog from Silverstone. We'll put the link below or something. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on the return to Montreal. And we will catch you in 2 weeks' time for the Silverstone Grand Prix, British Grand Prix. Catch us on YouTube, obviously, where you're watching us, Twitter and Instagram, and also TikTok. I am attending Goodwood this week, so there will be content from there as well. So just make sure you're following us across all social channels and engage with us, because we love to engage with you. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye.